Hi everyone, it's Sherry from the blog OurLifeHomeschooling.com, where I share homeschooling encouragement for everyday moms. I'm going to be talking today about how we handle screen time for our family of 12. If you're new to the channel, my name is Sherry. I am a homeschooling mom to 10 kids. I'm married to my high school sweetheart, Nelson. We've been married for 23 years. I'm a former public school teacher turned homeschool mom. We just finished up our 13th year of homeschooling. I love encouraging other moms on my YouTube channel and on the blog, OurLifeHomeschooling.com. If you like the content that you see here, would you do me a favor and like and subscribe? Today I'm going to be tackling the tough question of screen time. This is something that all parents want to do well. We want what's best for our kids. And many of us, if you're like we were the first generation that had kids after the smartphone. So it was all new territory, and of course you learn from your mistakes. You're going to make mistakes if you're the first ones doing it. And I want to share with you some of the things that we have done that we're still planning on doing. We have 10 kids. Our oldest is 18. We have an almost 16-year-old, 14, 12, 10, 8, 6, 5, 2, and a 5-month-old. So what I'm sharing with you is what we have been doing that we plan to keep doing with the rest of our children after learning some things along the way. I realize that this is a highly personal topic. Everyone has different preferences, and I think it's easy to kind of fall off one side of the horse or the other. And for us personally, we really try to aim for a balanced approach. You know, a lot of people see screen time as a way to bond with family and to collaborate with friends. Family movie nights are just the highlight of time that you can spend together with your kids. So that's one part of screen time. And then, of course, the other side of screen time is we want to give our kids a childhood, and we want them to spend their days outside, running around, enjoying God's creation. And when they're inside, we want them to spend time reading and doing puzzles and being creative and imaginative. Both of these things are important to me and to my husband, and so for that reason we really try to have a balanced approach as much as possible. So for us, this means that in our younger years we do limit screen time quite a bit, because these are years that are so formative, and screen time has shown to really limit children's attention span. But in the older years, we really want them to use screens to be productive and to be making things, building things, starting businesses. So that's a time where we look at screens a little bit differently. We try to emphasize with our kids that there are two types of screen time. There's the type of screen time that's purely for entertainment, which is good to enjoy in moderation and with limits. And then there's other screen time that is helping you to produce and to be creative. And this type of screen time we also want to encourage our older children to have, but also with some limits. As I tell you how we handle screen time in our family, I just want to put it out there right away that I don't think that our way is the best way or the only way. I'm sure that there are many other ideas out there. I'm just telling you what we have done that has worked and what we plan to keep doing with our other kids. And I hope, my purpose is that you can take your personality and pick out the things that you like, that you think might work in your home. And if there's things that just aren't you, then just toss it out, because you need to find what is going to best serve your needs and your family's needs. I want to talk first about the younger years. When kids are very young, their minds are just developing. They learn everything through the means of their 5 senses, through what they see, hear, smell, taste, and feel. So during this time, we really do try to limit screen time for our kids because we know how important it is for them to play outside, to be familiar with raw materials, especially with kids that can't read. They can't take in information simply by reading or looking at something on a website. They are taking it in when we read to them or when they go outside and they hear the birds singing and they see the flowers and they're doing water play and just experimenting. They learn by moving their bodies, being on the playground and on the swing and on the what did we used to have? The teeter-totter that goes up and down. I know they're not popular anymore, but they learn through moving their bodies. They learn through problem solving with puzzles, putting things together. Legos are great for this age. Dress up, imagining. All these things are so important for young children. Research has shown that young children really need to have a lot of time in free play, and that extended periods of screens really do limit their attention span and make it harder for them to focus. So while it's a lot more convenient to just put them in front of a screen when you're trying to do things, it really is not good for them to spend a lot of time in front of a screen because of the way their brain is developing. So in the younger years, we do try to limit screen time. One of the ways that our family enjoys screen time together is by watching family movie nights. We usually do this on Friday nights before my husband started working swing shifts again. This is just a way for us to connect and bond. It's fun. We have popcorn, kombucha. Also, sometimes when we are making dinner, we'll have our kids watch an episode of their favorite show, probably Wild Kratts or Total Twins or something like that. And that's just a little bit of downtime. They're short. It's about 30 minutes. We don't do it every day, but we pull it out when we need it. If they're imaginatively playing, then we don't interrupt that to make sure they get that time that day. But if we're making dinner and it's really helpful for them to be doing that and they can learn from that, then those are ways that we enjoy that. The other type of screen time that has been a little bit more challenging for us to navigate is video games. And so this would also fall into the category of entertainment type screens. We have found it really helpful to have some screen-free days built into the week. And the reason for this is because that when we have screen-free days, they just know ahead of time not even to ask. It's not a question. We just don't do video game type screens on this day. So for us, we have Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday for screen days. And one thing that has been really helpful in keeping their bedrooms clean and in setting just something to attain for screen time is we have told them that we would like them to have their bedroom clean before their screen time on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. And this has just been an incentive for them to, they usually work really hard to get it clean, and it's helped us to keep their rooms clean, and also it's just been something they have to work towards to get their screen time. We give them the video game screen time based on age. So the youngest ages have less, and then as they get older, we give them longer screen time. I will say that I think the size of your family can sometimes determine how much time they get. I can't tell you offhand exactly how much time we give at what ages. I don't even know it offhand. But I will say that because we have more kids in a larger family, we just always have something going on. I don't feel that our kids need as much entertainment as if there were less of us, because it's always a party here. And on top of that, when you have 10 kids that are doing video games on a certain day, by the time they get their screen time done and they watch everyone else, it ends up being a lot of time. So if you have a larger family, I don't think they need quite as much individual screen time because they are so entertained in general, and because the number of people on a screen is so many more, so they just have that many more opportunities to see it. So if we had only, say, 3 or 4 kids, we might extend that a little bit longer than what we do for our kids now, just because the pace of life is just a little bit different in a smaller family. Another thing that we try to implement with our younger kids, and even all our kids, is to use screen time to our advantage. So if it is a rainy day, we are probably going to maybe watch an educational movie or spend just be a little bit freer with how we use our screens that day, because we're all inside and this is a great time to do that. On the same wavelength, if it's a beautiful day outside and it's that Tuesday, Thursday, or Saturday, it's a screen day, we are going to just ask them to do screens after 8 o'clock, or have our younger ones do it first, and then once they go to bed, the middle kids who don't go to bed till 9:30, let them do their screen time after it's dark, because it just makes more sense to enjoy the outside world while it's nice out and to just save that for when it's dark. So fitting that in with the weather and with the time of day has been just a better way to manage it for us. I've heard different people wonder and worry over their kids being tech savvy if they don't give them enough exposure to screens when they're really young. And I really just think this is something that you should not even worry about, because if you have kids, you know that once you put them in front of a phone or an iPad or any kind of device, they are so quick to learn. And my kids, even though we have been pretty conservative with screen time in the younger years, when they get on a screen, a lot of them are able to do things that I don't even know how to do. So if you are worried about your kids growing up in a tech world and not knowing how to do things, that is something you should not be worrying about. Now, once our kids start getting older into middle school and high school, this really changes. I feel like their needs change, and we still have some basic rules as far as entertainment type of screens. We still have family movie nights. We still, we'll sometimes watch a short episode of something while I'm making dinner. We still do the Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday video game days. We probably extend their time as they get older so that they have a little bit more time for that. But in the older years, we really like to encourage and start introducing them to ways that they can use the internet to be more productive. So this has taken many forms for us as our kids get older. We usually start with them getting an email account, and then they can message their friends. And this is a great way for them to connect with them throughout the day. We do try to set some boundaries for that. I think it's like 3 times a day that they can check their email. Otherwise, they would be on Google Chat all the time, and it would be a huge distraction. So just setting a boundary for that. But just showing the kids Pinterest and Canva, different things that they can make. They can make their own invitations to parties and birthday events. A lot of times when they're on Pinterest, our girls get all kinds of craft ideas. Our son, he gets on GarageBand and he makes up a lot of songs. Another thing he has done is to use the internet to look up plans for a treehouse that he's building. So that has been something that's been really engaging his interest lately. And I love to see it. I love to see them using what they're learning to be productive. And we're always encouraging them, what can you do? Think of something you can make, something you can sell, something you can learn, some new trade you can learn. They've used YouTube to learn how to fix things. Our girls have started a baking YouTube channel. So at least once a week, they are finding a new recipe, baking it, recording it, and sharing it on there. And this is something fun for them to do. And they've learned a lot from it as well. As they get older, some of our kids have taken an interest in writing, so they'll want to get on the computer and work on the book that they're writing. Some of them have taken an interest in coding. All these are ways that they can be productive and they can grow and learn. And this is the kind of screen time that we do want to encourage. And yes, we still use boundaries and limits for that because it can just be something that is constant. but we're preparing them to learn how to discipline themselves and how to manage their own time, as well as using screens for an advantage. The last thing I'm going to talk about with kids is phones, and I know that I'm just kind of getting into really sticky territory here. When you give your kids a phone, you essentially are handing them off. So you're putting a lot of that self-control and management into their hands. You're putting a lot of that responsibility on them. Our kids have not had quite the pressure that a lot of kids have had to get a phone as early because they're homeschooled. So for that reason, we have waited to give them a phone until they are driving or until they have a job, because this is when it's really most useful and when they do really need it for some things. So I know that for a lot of kids that are in school, this is really late, but like I said, our kids just haven't had that kind of pressure in their lives on a daily basis. You know, they have it here and there from different places, but it's not something that's a constant for them. And one of my friends said to me, she had someone tell her that whatever pressure you're getting from your kids to get a phone, it's not nearly as much pressure or time or work as it's going to be after you give your kids a phone to manage all the apps and to be aware of what they're on and to have a filter and all the things that you have to do to protect your kids after you give them a phone. Now, I really felt like when our kids were little, all the moms would talk about how dangerous phones were and, you know, how we need to protect our kids and we want to give them a childhood. And then as they grew older and the pressure started building for kids to get phones as they're entering, you know, teenage life, I felt like then a lot of people just caved under the pressure and just kind of threw off all restraint. I don't know if you have experienced anything like that, but I want to encourage you that if you feel confident about the right time to give your child a phone, to not be afraid to be that parent that just waits a little bit longer. They have their whole adult life to be in that adult world and to be under that pressure. And it's not going to hurt them a little bit longer to just have some innocence. And yes, maybe they will be not quite as up to date on all the latest trends and fads that change so much more quickly when, you know, with the introduction of phones into our world. But it doesn't take them long to catch up. You know, as soon as you give them that phone, how quickly they change. They become part of the adult world so quickly, and they learn those things in a heartbeat. I am happy waiting until our kids absolutely need a phone to have that privilege and to be able to manage that on their own. It's my personal opinion that everyone who has a phone, every teenager, an adult, should have an accountability partner. So if you're a teenager, that would be your parents, and then as an adult, that would be your spouse. I think this really is a protection, and without it, you make yourself a target. We just live in a world where there are so many temptations online. It can be used for so much good, but it can also be it can change people. And so having an accountability partner, I think, is just really important. Of course, having regular conversations with your kids is where we started with phones. And I know for us, you know, the first thing on our minds was really protecting them from the dangers of pornography or of predators. That was kind of initially, we saw those as the dangers. The one thing that we really did not expect was the distractibility factor. We just did not think about or realize how distracting this can be for teenagers. And if you think about how many adults, you know, are just constantly struggling. I know I struggle with my phone, with being distracted with it. And then you give a child who has, you just kind of put the world at their fingertips. And the distractibility is something that we struggled with more than anything else. So because of this, we have a few general rules that we have made. One of them is that phones are away during school hours. So we just have them in a drawer. they're not available. We have them silenced so we're not hearing anything. We've really limited notifications. That has helped with the distractions. During the school year, we set times for them to check their phone. And so that's usually, I think, like 8 o'clock, noon, after school, and maybe before bed. And that has also helped. No phones in bedrooms, especially overnight. But taking a phone to a bedroom is really just an easy way to get away and waste a lot of time doing nothing. Another boundary that we've put in place is to encourage our kids that in general, when you are out in public, so at a restaurant or at youth group or with friends, at a family gathering, to put your phone away for the most part. When you're out with people, you're there to be with people. You know, when you're home, that's your time to find out what's going on in the rest of the world. But we don't want to miss out on those important one-to-one relationships with people. Another thing that's been helpful for us is to limit the time that we're on apps. My son knows how to do this. I don't know exactly how to do this, but he knows how to go in and limit his time. So he has gone in and set time limits for each app. And so then he gets kicked off. And that has been super helpful because he's been able to help make that decision for himself. How much time do you think would be a good amount of time for you to be spending doing this? And just giving that responsibility to them, they really do, for the most part, want to live well and to steward their time wisely. So if they can make the decision, it's just so much better. Another general rule that we have is that we want them to be doing all the work around here before they are enjoying time on their phones. So if chores aren't being done, if their room is constantly a wreck, then that means that the house is getting ignored, the family's getting ignored, and the phone is taking a priority. And that is just not okay with us. So because of that, we have taken it away. I think I can count on my hand how many times that's happened. But just knowing that if you can't keep up with the very little that we ask of you to contribute to the family, then you're not ready for the responsibilities of a phone. Lastly is social media. We have waited until our son's senior year to introduce them to social media. And this is something that we plan to still do with our other children. I know this is not typical for most kids. Kids are getting on social media earlier and earlier, despite all the research that shows how harmful it is for kids. But for us, this was a great way for us to help him navigate that world, to have a lot of discussions with him before he's on his own, but yet also, have that innocence a little bit longer. Finally, I just can't stress enough how important I think it is that as parents, we are modeling screen time well for our kids. They really are going to follow a lot of our examples. So if we are setting a good example for them, they'll see that higher standard, and I think for the most part, they'll want to live up to it. I would like to hear from you. What ways have you implemented screen time in your family? I really wish you would comment below and share some of your suggestions, things that have worked for you. I think when we all put our ideas in together, people can just get a feel for what works for them. I know everyone has different personalities and looks at this differently. So what has worked in your home? Share with someone else so they can take that and decide what's going to work for them. Thanks for listening in. Have a great week.